You ever just stop and wonder how your brain takes in all the noise and chaos of the world and somehow turns it into a simple, clear thought? Well, today we're going to do something a little different. We are literally cracking open a PhD dissertation to get right to the heart of that question. How do we, and for that matter, how could an AI actually create meaning? Okay, let's dive in.
I mean, this is really the fundamental question, right? Every second, we're just bombarded with raw, messy, sensory information. So how on earth do we get from all of that to a clean, simple idea like a dog, or justice, or even just a basic shape?
Okay, look at this. On the left, you've got this jumble of squares. It's noisy, it's kind of hard to describe. But on the right, a cross. It's instant, it's obvious, it's an abstract idea. The real magic, the thing we're going to deconstruct today, is the journey from the mess on the left to the clean concept on the right. How does any thinking system, whether it's made of cells or silicon, make that jump?
So, to figure this all out, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the puzzle itself, then grab a toolkit for how to even think about intelligence. After that, we'll look at how our minds actively find patterns, peek at the brain's actual hardware, and then wrap up with a totally new model for how a mind might actually work.
All right, first things first. When you're trying to understand something as ridiculously complex as a thinking mind, you can't just, stare at it. You need a framework. You need a structured way to ask the right questions.
And this is the key idea the dissertation gives us. It turns out you can analyze any system that processes information, whether it's your brain or your laptop, by looking at it from three totally different but connected points of view.
And this amazing framework comes from the legendary scientist David Marr. Just think of a cashier making change. The first level, computation, is the what and why. The goal is simple: give the customer the right change. The second level, algorithm, is the how. What are the actual steps? You subtract the price from what they gave you. And the third level, implementation, is the with what, the physical stuff doing the work. The cashier's brain and fingers or the circuits inside a cash register.
So for our puzzle, level 1, the what and why, is that big picture goal. We're trying to turn messy, sensory input into useful, abstract concepts. Then you have level 2. This is the how. It's the recipe. What are the step-by-step rules the mind is following to actually achieve that goal?
And finally, level 3 is the with what. This is the nuts and bolts, the physical hardware. Are we talking about neurons firing in a brain or electrons moving through silicon chips? Because that stuff really matters.
Okay, so we've got our toolkit. Now let's put it to work and zoom in on that second level, the algorithm. There's this one fascinating experiment in the dissertation that just beautifully shows these hidden pattern-finding rules in action. The experiment uses a method called serial reproduction, which sounds fancy, but it's basically just the game of telephone you played as a kid. Except, instead of whispering a secret phrase, people redraw a picture from memory, one after the other in a long chain. So here's how it starts. The very first person in the chain gets shown this messy, kind of random-looking pattern of squares. And all they have to do is remember it. Then they have to redraw it from memory. But here's the thing. Our memory is not a perfect camera, right? It forgets stuff, it smooths out the edges, it tries to impose some kind of order. So the picture that gets passed to the next person, it's already a little bit different, a little bit simpler.
And after this image gets passed down through 10 different people, the result is just, wow, it's stunning. The initial random noise is completely gone, and what's left, what emerges from the chaos, is a perfect, simple, structured pattern. In this case, a checkerboard. The chaos literally becomes a concept.
So, here's the crucial takeaway. This experiment isn't showing us that memory is bad. It's showing us the success of our mind's built-in algorithms. We are fundamentally biased towards things that are simple, symmetrical, and structured. This game of telephone acts like a filter, and it just strips away all the random noise, leaving behind the pure, abstract pattern that our minds secretly prefer. It's like a window right into our mental blueprints.
Okay, so that's the algorithm level. But what about the hardware? How does the actual wet, messy stuff of our brain, the implementation, how does it manage to create these pure, abstract ideas? This is where we jump from cognitive science right into neuroscience. This other experiment from the dissertation asks a really deep question. How do the actual neurons in a rat's brain represent something as abstract as the passage of time while completely ignoring other distracting information? So here's the setup. Researchers had two groups of rats listen to sounds. One group had to figure out how long the sound lasted, its duration. The other group had to figure out how loud it was, its intensity. And the whole time, they were recording the activity in their brains. And what they found is just incredible. When they looked at the brains of the rats judging time, they could perfectly decode the passage of time from the neural activity. But here's the really crucial part. That brain signal for time was completely unchanged by how loud the sound was. The brain had literally created a pure, abstract representation of duration, totally separate from the other sensory details. That right there is abstraction happening at the hardware level.
And this isn't just a weird quirk of brains either. This chart shows that both humans and AI models are way better at tasks that have some kind of underlying structure compared to tasks that are totally random. It points to this really deep truth. Intelligence, whether it's biological or artificial, seems to be fundamentally about finding and using patterns.
So we've looked at the algorithm and we've looked at the implementation. Now it's time for the final piece of the puzzle. The big idea that ties it all together and offers a whole new way to think about the mind itself.
For a long time, people thought of Mars levels as a strict hierarchy, like a one-way street from top to bottom. The goal decides the strategy, and the strategy decides the hardware. But this dissertation proposes something much more radical, a heterarchy. It's not a pyramid, it's more like a web, where all three levels are constantly talking to each other, shaping and constraining one another.
And this is the revolutionary insight. It means that the physical limits of our brain, our hardware, might actually be the reason we develop certain mental shortcuts, our algorithms. And then, when we discover a new algorithm, like, say, mathematics, it completely changes the kinds of problems we can even imagine solving, our computations. It's not a one-way street, it's this dynamic feedback loop where everything is shaping everything else. And that leaves us with this final, really powerful question. For decades, a lot of AI research has been pretty hierarchical. But if this new model is right, if our own intelligence bubbles up from this deeply interconnected web of goals, strategies, and hardware, then maybe the path to building truly intelligent machines isn't a straight line down a pyramid, but a tangled, beautiful web that we're only just beginning to understand.